22.1 million registered voters head to the ballot to exercise their democratic right of voting, choosing the next crop of leaders in those 6 elective seats. I'm joined by voters and analysts as well, Mark Bichachi and Dismas, registered voters in Nairobi, and Dismas Mukua. It's a pleasure to have you with us. As I mentioned a little bit earlier, before we crossed over, we were talking about the importance of having the numbers in Parliament. From where you sit, what's your analysis on that, just briefly?
Well, the importance of having numbers, both in the National Assembly, Senate, as well as the county assemblies, is for you as a party leader or as the president or a governor to execute your legislative agenda. Now, if you don't have those numbers, then right from the word go, you may force to go into a handshake or compromise your priorities. Like, for instance, for scenario building purposes, assuming Raila Odinga becomes the president of the Republic of Kenya, and he does not control the National Assembly, and he does not control the Senate. Effectively, it means that Moses Wetangula will become the Senate of the National Assembly, and maybe a preferred candidate by William Samoei Ruto becomes the Speaker of the Senate. So it means that if Raila Odinga wants to pass anything in the National Assembly, he has to have a conversation with William Samoei Ruto and Wetangula at all times. And the first order of business will be vetting the nominees. The people is going to appoint to the cabinet. So that's when people will start cutting deals. Wetangula, in consultation with Ruto, may decide that for us, we are going to implement bottom-up. These are the only pieces of legislation we are passing. So whatever Raila has been proposing, maybe of giving people 6,000 bob per month, will go nowhere. And the converse is true. If Raila controls the National Assembly and Senate, and William Ruto is the president, then again, they have to keep on cutting corners. Now, that is in theory. Because in practice, a member of the National Assembly has indicated that majority of the members of the National Assembly and Senate, they like to cut deals. That upon receipt of a khaki envelope, they can, review their loyalty. And in Kenya right now, it's almost impossible to kick anybody out of the National Assembly or the Senate on account of party disloyalty. So, they can shift their positions and you'll do absolutely nothing. And then there's a very high probability that we are going to have many independent candidates in the National Assembly and Senate. So these ones are not bound by any party leader. They can decide to shift positions. But in my view, under normal circumstances, that's what we must have. Like for instance, in the United States of America, where Republicans control one house, Democrats control one house, and the president is a Democrat. So that if you want to take a decision, it's not a fiat decision. You have to sit down and have a round-table conversation.
Well, that's interesting. We'll take a look at the numbers. Of course, in the 2017 election, Jubilee emerged victorious, especially with the numbers to the National Assembly and Senate. But since we're talking about 6-piece voting, Mark Bichachi, are we maturing politically as a country? Is it issue-based politics this time round, or at the end of the day, ethnicity is the winner?
So let's start here. I think my view must start with analyzing today. People are going to work. There is no tension. People are not on tenterhooks. That's maturity. Kenya is growing in terms of our capacity to deal with such things. Number 2, have we had a lot of tribal talk that you, as this tribe, if you don't vote for us, we'll kick you out and things like that? Very little. Are we maturing? Yes. Did we have concrete manifestos from both leading candidates? Actually, from almost all the candidates, all 4 of them had manifestos. Did we interrogate them? Did we talk about hyenas and plantations of hemp? Yes, we discussed it. So are we growing in that capacity? Yes. But what it is that our political parties are still personality cults. If you remove one person from a political party, that party stops existing. If you remove William Ruto from UDA, there is no UDA, right? If you remove Raila Odinga from ODM, there is no ODM. So these cults of personality are the next frontier that we need to remove. This is why one of the things that I hope for is the parties that are not going for the top seat, I hope they continue to exist. I hope that the parties that are in coalition continue to exist. Why? Because we need those parties to become places where ideologies can be grown, fermented, and curated. The problem with this country is that if, for example, today the big thing giving is 6,000 shillings for the marginalized and the poor, if that is the big thing, and it's an ODM thing, if ODM loses Raila Odinga and he retires, then ODM falls by the wayside and the 6,000 is gone. We need to create systems where these political parties actually carry out ideals, not for an election cycle, but carry out those ideals for the foreseeable future, so that we have a situation where, you know, when I'm voting for a Democrat, this is what it means. When I'm voting for a Republican, this is what it means. In this country, you vote for people, you have no idea what it means, because the head of the party can wake up tomorrow and say, by the way, I have decided that I'm going to join Wajakoya, and suddenly we are all discussing hemp.
Interesting. Anyway, as you pick it up,
let me buttress that point.
Yeah.
A few weeks ago, one of the oldest parties in Africa, the African National Congress in South Africa, had a policy meeting for one entire week. The ANC members were discussing their policy positions, and the president of ANC came on the last day to take advice and to listen what the party had agreed upon. In Kenya, that does not happen. Even when you look at the manifestos we have in Kenya, the manifestos we have in Kenya are put together by a group of bright chaps. 90% of the time, the members of the political party have no idea of what the manifesto contains. Even the party leader has no idea of what is contained in the manifesto. What does that mean? It means that everybody within the party, right from the party leader to the members to the people who are going to join various roles in administration, have no idea of what they're talking about. So what does that mean? It means that the backstops with the party leader, his word is as good as law. That's why you see sometimes when they're reading speeches, these party leaders, you begin to wonder whether in fact they had a chance to socialize with the speeches, because they're seeing it for the first time. Now, talking about a six-piece voting, in my view, at this stage, it's a voodoo thinking, because we must abandon six-piece voting today for several reasons. Number one, most of the political parties did not conduct party primaries that you may refer to as free, fair, nor credible. Like, for instance, the members of Azimio, in most parts, they just decided to pick candidates. UDA gave it an attempt. Now, that being the case, members of all these political parties were disenfranchised. A number of them decided to run as independents, or others knowing very well that the party primaries will not be fair, nor credible, nor authoritative. They decided they're going to run straight as independents. And at this stage, one can easily mention the names of somebody like Dr. Mishra, who is a very solid member of the National Assembly. It would be a tragedy if he's not voted in, or if he's not re-elected on account of six-piece voting. Because you see, political parties in Kenya do not exercise democracy. Most of the time, political parties in Kenya are in fact dictatorships. Even for the ODM party primaries in Langata, the gentleman who won the election did not get the ticket. A different gentleman was given the ticket. So in my view, the Kenyan voter must punish must punish party leaders for failing to have credible party primaries, so that you have more independence in the National Assembly, more than people belonging to any political parties. And in maybe I think it would be a good day for Kenya, whereby in those areas where the party primaries were in black and white, rigged, you have independence going on, so that in 2027, party leaders know that they must run free, fair, and credible party primaries.
Nominations. Okay, that's interesting. Let's evaluate the how, because as I was taking a look at some of the promises handed to Kenyans by some of these top presidential candidates, as you interrogate the manifesto, the how at times is lacking. You know, how I will implement, whether it's Raila Odinga. I'm just taking a look at some of the issues he's promised: water for every home, finance women in business, scale up of universal healthcare, reduce the cost of living in 100 days, eradicate corruption, free education to university level. How? You know, we need to ask this how. What do you think will be the magic bullet to ensure that these promises will be actualized?
You know, a politician telling you that they're going to implement anything within 100 days, that is an obvious lie. Within 100 days, if you're the president of the Republic of Kenya, you are still putting together your cabinet, you're still putting together your top administration, You are still holding parliamentary group meetings with your new members of the parliament. In other words, you are setting the ground for success. So maybe the only thing you can do within the first 100 days is to issue those orders from State House. But concrete steps, it will not work. And then number two, if our party leaders were serious with the promises, they would have given us the manifestos the way they did, which is very good. When you look at UDA, they did county fora. So it means that every county in Kenya is represented in the Kenya Kwanza manifesto. And then also they had industry meetings, like they met people with disabilities, the private sector, and they captured their views. And I also saw a few days ago that Azimio did the same. They issued county or regional based manifestos, and they said they captured the views and aspirations of all Kenyans. Now, that is cool because you've already identified priorities. Now, the second level would have been to cost the priorities. None of the political parties did substantive costing of the priorities, so that when you tell us you'll be giving 6,000 to persons, how many people are you going to be giving 6,000? The figure thrown in the air is 2 million, but nobody has told us how did you establish that in fact is 2 million. So in other words, we are not given some sort of a balance sheet that this is how I'm going to raise my resources and that this is how I'm going to spend. So the Kenya shilling sign was missing. That is number one. Number two, there's this concept we've been talking about every single day about zero-based budgeting. So we'd have expected that in every sectoral area, the party manifestos or the party leaders would actually give us some sort of a budgeting so that we know what we are talking about. They did not do that for a very good reason. They love giving blanket statements so that they're not going to be held accountable. However, if you've got a leadership that is very determined, that is very focused, there's a very high chance that within the first 3 months they can make progress. And this is in reference to President Kibaki, who said there shall be free primary school education when I take over. As soon as he took over, he appointed Professor Saitoti, and he told him, make sure you implement this. When Saitoti said, well, I don't have resources, I don't know how to do this, he told him, I've given you a job, make sure it happens. So it happened. So there was a bit of turbulence, but it still it took place, which in my view is the reason that in as much as you present this manifesto, you should give us your priority areas. You give us 100 promises. You say these 100 promises are for 5 years. But in the short term, in the first 3 months or 6 months, in the 1 year, this is what we need to do. And you recall when President Kibaki took office, people were very excited. Kenyans were arresting policemen, others went to KCC, they were swimming by the swimming pool. But that's the kind of thing we need to see. That's what we expected from leaders. But because most of them did not pay attention to those priorities to give the costing, then we should lower expectations. Actually, in my view, Kenyans right now, the expectations are at the top of Mount Kenya. They must lower the expectations because whoever becomes president, Raila Odinga or Ruto, Kenyans must manage expectations. There are no miracles happening on day one after Kasarani. It's going to take a while before anything substantive changes. Well,
interesting. And since I mentioned some of the deliverables that the Azimio camp had promised, let me just highlight a few before we cross over to my colleague Purity Museo. In terms of the Kenya Kwanza agenda, they've highlighted a couple of issues, including that 50 billion hustlers fund that has been sung time and time again, 250 billion shillings loan for farmers over 5 years, better funding for universities, free healthcare for all, 50% cabinet positions for women, improved salaries for security personnel, 250,000 affordable houses every year. This is some of the promises,
If briefly. I can just briefly. We cannot vote based on manifestos. Let's look at the personalities. Ask ourselves, between Raila Odinga and William Ruto, who can you believe? Trust level. It's all about trust. Because believe you me, I can produce a manifesto. I just need a little resources and 5 professors in a room. Anybody in Kenya can put together a manifesto. But who has the leadership capacity to deliver? I think that should be the bottom line.
But these are politicians, with all due respect. Double speak is the form of...
Now, we don't have choices. We are limited to 2 politicians. Let's ask ourselves... Actually. I mean, the other 2 are part of the escort. They stand no chance. They don't stand a chance. I know you've been a journalist and been objective, but when you look at the crystal ball, probability of Wajakoya becoming a president, 0. Probability of Mauro becoming a president, 0. So I don't even know why we are discussing them, but I think it's your role as a journalist to ensure
definitely, we have to, as usual. But allow us to take a breather just a bit as we cross over to my colleague Purity Musel for more updates from various regions. Purity.
Jesse Rogers having a heated discussion there on whether people should be looking at issues or personalities that